I'm here with Miss Echo.
I'm here with Miss Cole.
True story. We wanted to talk a little bit about Dharma today, let you know what it means, what it is, and how you can get you some.
Well, the great thing about Dharma is that maybe without even knowing it, you already have it. So that's nice. But Dharma, you might hear this word, kind of a buzzword thrown around a lot. Dharma is basically purpose. It's like finding purpose in an existence. It's quite overstimulating at times. We've got lots going on in the world, and Dharma has a lot to do with finding a way to not, I guess, feel so small in a very collective pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're a meaning making species.
Mm-hmm.
We create all different kinds of stories and myths and ways to make sense of the world. We do it in big forms. We do it in little forms. I mean, I'm a story maker. I'm always telling stories. But we get to make our own meaning in this world, and it's incredibly beautiful. And then we often feel like we're without it as well. So it's about finding, touching in, and how you can really touch in and feel anchored into life, rather than this feeling of what are we doing here. So we're not really going to like answer the question of what exactly that we're doing here. You get to answer that question about what is it that fills you up, what is it that you can give to the world, and what is it that makes you feel part of.
Yeah, and Dharma also, it doesn't have to be grand. It can be, it doesn't have to be trivial either, but it can be something very simple. And I think that, one thing that gets a bad rap, especially in modern day society, is that we need to find this very large, meaningful purpose in our life. And sometimes our meaning, like our purpose, is to just find contentness and the fluidity of life. And I think that some people, their purpose is to be rocks, to be grounded, to really, really keep people grounded because we live in a very, yeah, a very overstimulated world where people kind of need that energy around them. So if all of our energy is up in the air and up in the ethers and creation and ambition and drive, there also has to be energy that pulls us back down and brings us back down to the ground. So it's about finding the systems that work for you. So that can be your interdependent systems, your friendships, your working relationships, whatever it might be. Finding what role you play in those circles and seeing where you serve your community the best. So, is it your purpose to speak up, to use your voice, to be opinionated, to speak up for those who can't, or is it for you to step back and let go of things and detach and to allow space for others? And so sometimes our purpose can be something that's already very much a part of our life that we're not even realize is kind of playing underneath the surface. And if we can bring it to the surface and like nurture it through our relationships and through the different things that we choose to bring into our life, then we can really become content with finding that dharma or that purpose in the things that already exist there in our life. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be really beautiful to almost like harvest it. Like that analogy of like in a garden, like taking out weeds and planting seeds, and it's kind of this harvest. It's something that's always happening. So when we can kind of figure out what it is that fills us up, what it is that we can give, then we can put more energy into it by planting the seeds and taking out the weeds. So some of the questions that I think could be helpful is, what is it that brings you joy? Like what is that? What is this thing that like really brings you joy? You can also say, what is it that really makes you feel connected? Like at what points of your life do you feel really connected? And I mean, these are some inquiries that you can write about, that you can really think about, or what are some other inquiries?
Well, one way that I like to look at it as well is that if you're asking these questions and you're doing the self study and you're being curious about what it is that really lights you up or makes you passionate, but also what it is that you can give that brings contentness to you. So, in a selfish way, by being selfish and doing what drives you and what really brings you joy, you give others the permission to step into their own authenticity and their own desires. And so they can step forward into what it is that really lights them up. And I think that it's really important to see what those qualities in you are that are desirous and what you want to bring into your life, and notice how you can bring them into any situation. So look at your friendships, look at your relationships, look at your career, and see what your passions are and what it is that you're good at. Maybe you haven't really nurtured it yet, and how you can bring that into your community. And from there, you might find a sense of peace or pleasure that you weren't even aware of, because maybe you're good at something and you're like, I'm really great at math, but I hate math. I don't want to do math. I'm good at it, but I don't like it. Maybe you find a way to incorporate it into your life in some creative way where it's giving back to others. And then by the good that you see coming from that skill that you have, it might bring you more pleasure finding what your Dharma is.
Right.
We all have these hidden skills and they're just beneath the surface.
And often it comes from our experience. So something that's happened in your life. Often, our struggles can become our superpowers. For instance, one thing that really fills me up and feels like, part of what my Dharma is to share about addiction and recovery. And that's because it's something that I lived and something that I absolutely never thought would be of any benefit to anyone whatsoever. But now that it fills me up to be able to speak to that, to be able to connect with other people on that level. And, you're an expert in your experience. So often it's a least likely thing that could come back around and be what you can give back to the world. And again, oh goodness.
Oh, we have a star.
Hi, sweetie. But again, it doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to be something grand, but often it is something that comes from your life story. That comes in your life story.
I just got a bone dumped onto my thigh.
It's a big compliment.
And that is maybe his Dharma, is that he's a good hunter and he was bringing me a treat. So I should be very pleased that I have dog mucus and bones on my thigh now.
I think dogs are like joy Dharma.
Yeah.
They're all like big joy boxes. That's
cute.
what they do.
No, and I completely agree with Cole. Like, I think that one thing that we've both figured out in the last couple of years, and being around Cole has definitely inspired this and instilled it in me, but I think that taking your obstacles and turning them into opportunities, like it seems with your addiction that you've done, and you've helped people by bringing light to something that has a stigma to it, that I think now allows people to realize, hey, this isn't as shameful or as quiet as it should be. This is something that's real and that people are going through, and it needs to have a voice, and there needs to be light to it so that we can make fun of ourselves and not take ourselves so seriously, and realize that life can be hard, but that we can also turn over a new leaf. And I think that for me, opposite end of the spectrum, but coming just from my own hardships, I think that what I realized is, instead of feeling sorry for myself, like I think a lot of us can do when things get tough, it's really easy to fall into the, why does this happen to me? This always happens. I'm never going to get out of this space. I just realized that I needed to kind of speak up for myself and say what it was that I wanted. And by doing that, people stepped forward whenever I came to tell my story, and were like, hey, I've been where you've been. Childhood was hard. Things were tough. I didn't have the resources that I needed or the basic needs covered, and I felt really alone. And it's great to feel that somebody else understands where I'm coming from. So sometimes our Dharma is honestly just speaking our truth. It can be as easy as that. So you don't even need to go out and do anything large or grand. You just need to speak your truth, and you give people the permission to also speak theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Service is such a big, beautiful thing, and it keeps us connected with others. One thing that I am just remembering that my teacher was telling me, Denise, both of our teachers, I was having some really, really tough anxiety, and I messaged her and I told her, I was like, oh my God. At this point, I was like reaching out to everybody, like, what can I do? And I told her I was just, I was struggling so hard. And she used to work at the prison in Bali, so she gave me the number. She goes, go and teach at this prison. It'll get you right out of your head. And I was like, huh. And that's what I started to do. So there's something about the service that is so medicinal. And, altruism is never fully selfless. What I got out of being able to do that, out of giving service, out of helping and in sharing and giving, not only helped these women and gave them medicine, I hope, but just what it in turn gave to me and the connection that it felt like from point A, me walking in to this prison with all this anxiety, to it just like not thinking about myself, feeling connected, and then coming out a completely different person. It happened like every time I went. So this Dharma, you can also think about it in terms of service.
Absolutely. And I think a good point of that as well is that there's always a give and take. There's a time that our voices need to be used to tell our story, to give other people the space to speak their own truth. But there's also times for us to give back and listen. And so I think that it's really important that we understand that give and take, and that we don't get so attached to our own stories and our own Dharma and our own purpose, that we don't realize that each and every person that we come across in our lives and in our daily lives as a stranger is also trying to find purpose in their lives. You know, there's 8 billion of us living on this earth, and our story is so important. The hats that we wear are so important, and our role every day is so important to our life. But sometimes we can become accustomed to that more introspective space that we don't realize that other people are going through things. So sometimes just listen. Like, maybe you're a really good listener, you're very patient, you're very calm. Your Dharma could be simply to be a sounding board for people, to just be there, to be supportive. By just having your presence there alone is really, really important. And so I think that our stories, and whatever your story is or whoever else is around, we all approach our purpose from a very different space. It could be very vocal, it could be very quiet. There's no reason to say that, you know, what we've found as purpose in our life will be what you find for purpose in your life. But it is important that you're curious, and that you also understand and relate to the fact that everybody around you is trying to figure it out as well. And so, not to take out too many of your agitations on the journey by projecting onto anyone else.
So explore that within yourself. Encourage you to talk with friends about it, journaling, just sitting with it in some meditation, and yeah, just be curious.
Yeah, always stay curious. And you don't have to know what your Dharma is right now. But find out what it is that makes you happy, or what it is that you're good at that you can offer to those around you. And by journaling and being curious each day, slowly but not surely, something will surface at some point for you, and you could be like, oh, maybe this is purpose for me at that moment. Maybe not forever, but maybe for that moment.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'll leave with one thing that I think I've said this before, and Elizabeth Gilbert said this. She's the writer of Eat, Pray, Love. She's amazing, and Big Magic. One thing that she said is that she used to get up on TED Talks and talk about passion, 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 passion. And she got a letter from this woman who wrote her, was very upset, and was like, I hate when people talk about passion. That some people we don't know. We don't know what the passion is. And whenever we hear that, it induces shame. She thought about it for a long time, and she wrote this really eloquent letter, which I will completely butcher. But essentially, what she wrote back, or what her response to this, and what she says now, is that she doesn't tell people to find their passion, that it's to follow your curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes your curiosity will lead to your meaning or your purpose or your passion. Or maybe you live a life full of curiosity, and that is an absolutely life well lived.
I agree.
Well, thanks for joining us. We probably have a retreat coming up. We're always planning some adventure. So if you want to come and muse with us somewhere in the world, then head over to my website or Echo's website. It'll be in the description here, and come play.
Yeah. Stay curious and playful.
Ciao.